I.F.O. by Conway Fitzgerald. Chapter 5. Agent McVale landed in Albuquerque in the morning. He had an overpriced and unsatisfying airport breakfast, obtained his rental car, and by the early afternoon, he was already thirsty for his first drink. After reviewing the mission dossier during the flight, which included all the blurry photos and strange FAA scans, as well as the many dubious eyewitness reports, he decided to begin with Trooper Villalobos, the statey who claimed to have witnessed the alien abduction of the missing girl. Villalobos had been placed on administrative leave, clearly shaken by the experience.
Well, thank you for seeing me, Trooper Villalobos. Villalobos. It means den of the wolves,
the trooper said. His wife escorted the children out of the living room so the two could speak more privately.
Look, you're FBI. So this is about finding that girl, right? Because everyone seems to be focusing on me, on my report, not on finding the girl. I already spoke with the FBI men from Gallup. She's still missing, right? Well, yeah, of course. We're all trying to find the girl. That and some other things.
Trooper Villalobos was surprised to hear McVale's apparent disclosure of the true nature of his investigation.
What other things? You people think I'm crazy, like they do over at headquarters. No, Trooper, nothing like that. I'm just trying to better understand what it was you think you saw. What I think I saw. It's all there, in the report. You boys from Washington think I'm crazy. You think I made it up?
Trooper Villalobos said angrily, pointing to the copies of his report he shared with McVale.
No, Trooper, I don't think you're crazy. It's just, well, an extraordinary story, you must admit. Can you be a little more specific as to the nature of the flying vehicle you witnessed?
McVale asked calmly. The trooper had reached the end of his rope.
Look, Agent McVale, I have been asked the same goddamn questions by several different agencies over and over again for nearly a week now. It's all in there, all right? I have nothing more to add.
The trooper's wife sat down on the couch beside him and held his hand tightly to offer moral support. Agent McVale realized he had gotten all he was going to get out of him.
I understand, Trooper. I appreciate your time, Mrs.,
he said, acknowledging the trooper's wife. McVale pulled away from the home as the two peered at him through the living room window. McVale then headed over to the home of the Samuels family, the grandparents of the missing girl. They too were adamant they had nothing further to add to the story, but there was something the grandmother had said to police that had piqued McVale's interest.
Mrs. Samuels, you told the sheriff's office that you believed your son was the one who took Jessica. What makes you think that? Have you seen him recently? We haven't seen our son in years. That was a silly thing, she said.
Her husband, Mitchell Samuels Sr., the missing girl's grandfather, declared. McVale looked to the elderly woman for clarification.
Well, what made you think it was your son, Mrs. Samuels?
The two gray seniors looked at each other like they knew where all the bodies had been buried. Like they were hiding something.
Mrs. Samuels, if you know anything that can help us locate Jessica.
You heard the police. You heard what they said. The occupants of the van vanished under a hail of light,
she said defensively.
Yes, I've read through those reports thoroughly. But they didn't say anything about your son, Mitch. Your son and his wife have been missing persons for over 4 years now. Did he contact you?
No, she clammed up.
Well, in the police reports, you said you believed Mitchell and Donna had come back here to take her into space with them. What did you mean by that?
The two looked at each other again, like too much had already been said. Like my husband said, I was emotional. Jesse's parents have been missing, and they are presumed dead, she said, starting to tear up. She rested her head on her husband's shoulder. The clamshell had been closed tightly. McVale could get nothing more. McVale then took his investigation to the south of town. He figured he'd converse with some of the local folk to see what the townies were saying. It would also be a good excuse to get liquored up and have Uncle Sam foot the bill. The sun had set as he got off the freeway. He decided to exit at Los Chavez because the sign said there was food and lodging. When he saw how small and desolate the town was, he had almost changed his mind and gotten right back on the freeway. It was then that he spotted the Oasis. The Bud Light neon sign in the window of the establishment made clear his destination. There were just a few patrons, haggard truck drivers wearing dirty baseball caps and flannel shirts, and a couple of old-timers planted at the end of the bar. He had a seat when up popped a lovely young woman from behind the bar.
Oh, hi there. Can I get you something?
She said with a smile.
How about a Jack Daniels on the rocks?
Said McVale, wiping the sweat from his brow.
Sure. Would you like a glass of ice water with that?
Now, why would I come into a bar for a glass of water?
It's hot out there,
she said as she poured the whiskey. Cindy was very curious about this guy. He definitely wasn't a local. He was very handsome, but more so, he commanded respect. He was in a position of power, she could tell, and it made her very excited.
Damn right about that,
he said, continuing to dry up his face.
Okay, give me the water too.
McVale was intrigued by Cindy's politeness and her womanly logic. She was much too pretty to be working in a shithole like this. He figured her father must be the owner, and she was consigned to live here in hell, working this bar until it froze over.
So what brings you to Los Chavez?
She asked as she served him the ice water.
Business.
Any particular type of business?
She asked hesitantly.
My own,
he said strongly, inferring that perhaps she should mind her own as well.
Oh,
she said, somewhat embarrassed.
$4, please.
McVale pulled out his wallet and dropped his Visa on the bar.
Can I start a tab? Or is this a cash-only facility?
That's fine,
she said as she took the card. She huffed as she turned her back to him. As she typed in the numbers and processed the charge, Ian got a better glimpse of her figure. He was very impressed. She had a few extra pounds. Certainly she wasn't a fitness model, but she had delicious curves, especially from behind. He thought about using his time-proven pickup strategy, the truth.
If you must know, I work for the government.
Cindy put up her hand, suggesting she was busy, but then turned around.
What's that?
I'm an agent for the Federal Bureau of Investigation, the FBI.
He repeated, in case she didn't get it the first time. She looked surprisingly uninterested, probably because she didn't believe him. He pulled out his badge, and her head bobbed back in disbelief. The barflies who were eavesdropping were also silenced.
Wow, what do you know? A real FBI man,
she smiled. Then her face got serious.
Who are you looking for? Is it anything serious?
She whispered. She leaned towards him. He noticed her pronounced cleavage and was distracted momentarily.
Serious?
He laughed out loud.
I wish it was something serious.
He hesitated as he returned his badge to his pocket. Then he figured he'd just take the good with the bad and see what these people had to say, knowing he was a G-man and all. He spoke loudly, overtly, so everyone in the bar could hear.
It seems even Uncle Sam wants to know more about all these reports of U.F.O.s.
He said the last 3 letters slowly and sarcastically.
Can you believe they want me to apprehend the little green men behind the controls and then bring them in for tea with the president?
They both laughed.
Wow. I mean, really?
Yeah, really. I can't believe it either, but here I am.
He said with a yawn, leaning back, stretching in his stool.
Well, actually, I know quite a bit.
He lost his smile and looked at her with concern.
I mean, I've reported on it. The sightings, I mean. You see, this is just my part-time job. During the day, I'm a reporter. On television.
Is that right?
Yeah. Most of the time we go out and hear a bunch of baloney. But sometimes we get some pretty good stories. There are a lot more of those baloney stories, more and more these days.
Are you the reporter who shot those pictures of the spacecraft?
He said, extremely sarcastically.
That got everyone all excited about this?
Oh, no. That was our competition.
She said under her breath.
But I'm working on something now that will blow that away.
She then realized she had already breached her agreement with Dr. Funderburk. So she slowed the fervor of her claims.
I mean, I hope it's good.
Grunted McVale as his glass was reduced to ice.
Well, I'll tell you what. If you do come across any good information about this, here's my card. Feel free to contact me anytime.
Oh. Okay. I'll do that.
McVale looked into her eyes and could tell it was working. Cindy was clutching the card like the Holy Grail, and her eyes bounced between it and Agent McVale's strong, distinguished face, large build, and powerful, confident demeanor. Her heart raced as she scrambled around the bar, looking back on occasion to make sure he hadn't left. McVale's thoughts were on how much fun he was going to have screwing her when his phone rang. He checked the caller ID. It was his mother-in-law's number.
Oh, shit.
He raced outside as he answered.
Hello, this is McVale.
Ian,
said the quiet, subdued voice on the other end of the phone.
Diane, is that you? Why didn't you call me? I was so worried. And I had to leave town suddenly.
Ian, listen. I'm sorry it had to be this way. But I really didn't have any choice.
What do you mean, Diane? What happened?
There was a long pause. Then she exhaled and spilled the beans.
I fell in love, Ian. I fell in love with someone else. And I needed to get away.
Ian took his ear off the phone and cringed. His heart sank to the floor, and the anger swelled within him. He could hear her voice still speaking as he brought the phone in his trembling hand back to his ear.
I hope you can understand.
You hope I can understand? I understand perfectly well. You cheated on me. You betrayed our vows, Diane.
Ian, I'm sorry. I knew this was a bad idea calling you. But I figured I just had to do it. I didn't want to hurt you. I know your career is the most important thing for you. And I just need more.
Where's my dog?
He yelled.
I want Max back, you dog thieving bitch!
Goodbye, Ian.
Wait! Don't you hang up on me, you...
McVale yelled out. Even with the jukebox blaring, everyone inside the bar could hear his yell.
Fuck!
He tossed his phone across the desert highway and sat himself on the pavement by the road. After spending a few minutes collecting himself, he went to the payphone and called his cell phone, enabling him to hear where it was amid the tumbleweeds. And he retrieved it. By the time he re-entered the bar, he was in no mood for romance. Cindy could tell he was very distraught. He was curt when he asked for his tab and credit card back. Cindy could tell he was upset, but couldn't think of asking him why. She was worried that he was going to leave the bar and never return again, so she spoke softly and sweetly when she presented the bill.
Here you are. Thank you.
McVale signed it hastily and then downed the rest of his ice water.
Oh, by the way,
She said innocently.
can I give you the name and address of the scientist we're interviewing tomorrow? It's a weird assignment, and I figured if I disappeared and everyone was like, ah, wondering what happened to me, at least the FBI would know.
She smiled. McVale nodded, the distressed frown still emblazoned on his face. She wrote on his bill, then handed it to him. It said, Dr. Arnold Funderburg, and 1800 Ladron Park Highway. McVale drove the rest of the way in town and checked himself into a cheap hotel. Once again, thoughts of ending his sad existence assailed his conscience. He fought them back with a fresh bottle of booze he had purchased at the local liquor store. He wandered through the moonlight, looking up to the moon for answers, but found none. He thought about Cindy and her innocence, how she too, at best, could only be the next ex-McVale. How long would it take for her to figure out that he was someone not destined to be loved? How soon would it be before she took everything he cherished and vanished into the night? McVale pulled the crumpled receipt from his pocket. He thought of adding it to the desert debris, but instead, he dialed into his friend at Records. He left a message asking him to look up Dr. Arnold Funderburg and see if anything came up. He did this for no other reason than to have something else to talk to Cindy about, even if it was nothing. Thanks so much for watching, everyone. If you haven't yet, please subscribe and ring the bell for notifications so you never miss an episode. Be sure to smash that like button and comment below. It helps a lot. If you'd like to help me get this book published, please consider becoming a Patreon supporter. And as always, be sure to share this story with all of your friends on your favorite social media.